I love exploring and I love discovering new things. Now this applies to my personal life. I love to get out and photograph abandoned locations that I've never been before. I find them fascinating, I find them interesting. And this also applies to the way I listen to music. I don't just mean I like discovering new artists and new songs, new albums. That's a given. No, I like to find new details, new intricacies, new little instrumentations that I've never noticed in the production before. And I think for most audiophiles, that's all they really want. Now, sometimes discovering and finding new things can be scary. I'm here at this abandoned Greyhound track right now because this is the safest time for me to be here. And likewise, our choices with hi-fi and head-fi, well, sometimes a lot of us play it safe. We have our preconceptions of how we want things to sound or how they should sound. But I say to hell with that. And apparently Meze has as well. My name's Daniel. I'm here from Living Entertainment North Coast. And we need to talk about the Meze Empyrean 2. Because this set of headphones has put the fun back into the discovery of music. Now, if we're going to have a conversation about the Meze Empyrean 2, it's kind of important to go and look back at what's changed and what's the same from the previous iteration of the Empyrean. Both open back headphones. Both use the Renaro isodynamic hybrid array drivers. And visually, they also look quite similar, though there are definitely differences if you know where to look. But when it comes to specifications, it's not hard to see where Meze have made their adjustments. The frequency response has been adjusted from 4 to 110,000 Hz to 8 to 110,000 Hz. Impedance has been tweaked from 31.6 ohms to around 32 flat. And the total harmonic distortion has dropped from less than 0.1% to less than 0.05%. But when we talk in terms of visible tweaks, I really love the machining around the logo where the drive is attached to the head strap adjustments. It's a small detail that feels incredibly premium, and it's not even found on the Elite. I also really like the 2 in Roman numerals on the head strap. It's a small thing, it's a very small thing, but again, it just shows how proud Meze are of this particular set of headphones, and I think it's a really cool stamp to have on there. I also have to talk about the carry case that the Empyrean 2 arrives in. Now, I kind of really love how imposing the big silver briefcase was for the original Empyrean. But this new compact black suitcase, it feels nicer. I like the fact it's smaller. It feels good. Comfort-wise, I feel like the Empyrean 2 is slightly more comfortable than the original Empyrean. I do mean slight. I don't know if it's because there's a slight difference in weight or not, but there's something about it that's just a smidge more comfortable for long periods. And something else that I thought was interesting was I actually find the clamp force of the Empyrean 2 to be better suited to my particular head shape than the Meze Elite, which is kind of an interesting little quirk to notice. Now, Meze have been very open about the fact that they've been going to the community to hear what they want for these specific headphones. And while I can kind of tell what that might have meant for the physicality of it and the comfort, we really have to talk about what these tweaks mean for the sound, because you might be surprised. So the sound is where things with the Empyrean 2 start to get a little complicated. So I think the first thing I need to do is actually break down how I tested the Empyrean 2. In terms of source, it was always the Chord Cutest. Hi, it's me in post. Just a slight correction here. My source was actually this M2 MacBook Air, and that was being run via USB to the Chord Cutest. And in terms of headphone amplifiers, I alternated between the Chord Any and the Aurus HA2 SE Plus. Now, in terms of these two headphone amplifiers, the differences that the Empyrean 2 had were really, really subtle. And given that we're comparing a tube headphone amp with a solid state, and the differences were so minor, it leads me to believe that the Empyrean 2 is not a heavily headphone amplifier dependent set of cans. Now, I also tried them with my Audiolab 6000A Play, And again, I got very similar results. However, while using the Aurus HA2 SE Plus, I did alternate between a variable 1/4-inch jack headphone cable and a 4-pin XLR balanced cable. And yeah, okay, that's where the differences lie. Using a balanced cable with the Empyrean 2, you get a more dynamic and you definitely get a more controlled sounding listening experience. So when it comes to choosing your source for these particular headphones, I recommend keeping a balanced output in mind. And this brings me to the next variable in the testing process. Now, the original Empyrean came with 2 sets of ear pads. You got a leather pair and a angled Alcantara, which I think is how it's pronounced.
Oh, hi, it's me again. So I Googled it, and it's actually pronounced Alcantara. So I'm going to pronounce it wrong for the rest of this video, but if you could pretend in your mind that I'm saying the right thing, well, I would definitely greatly appreciate it.
Pair of ear pads. Now, the Empyrean I was sent to use for testing alongside the Empyrean 2 only came with those angled ear pads. Now, to make things a little bit more complicated, the Empyrean 2 also comes with 2 pairs of ear pads. You get a pair of angled Alcantara ear pads again, which not the same as the original Empyrean. They are actually tuned very, very, very differently, and I learned this by swapping the original Alcantara ear pads onto the Empyrean 2 and comparing them to the new one, and yeah, a completely different sound. And it also comes with what they call the new Duo ear pads, which are a mix of leather and Alcantara. And funnily enough, of the 2, I actually found these to be the more comfortable, just by a very, very, very small margin. So I guess you would have to call this process a side-by-side-by-side comparison. But regardless of which of the 2 earpads you go with, it is impossible not to notice just how much wider the Empyrean 2 sounds than the original Empyrean. That soundstage really has been blown out quite a bit. Now, that's not to say that the Empyrean 2 is best in class when it comes to soundstage width. In my personal listening experience, that award definitely goes to the Dan Clark Audio Expanse headphones. But it's still a massive improvement, and I don't think many people would be, unhappy with its presentation. Let's put it that way. But in terms of comparing it to the original Empyrean, to say that the sound has evolved would be kind of disingenuous, because while aspects of its sound signature have definitely evolved, the amount of detail retrieval is substantially improved, for example. But tonally, the Empyrean 2 is very much its own beast. So of the 2 pads that the Empyrean 2 comes with, the new Duo pads are definitely the more balanced tonally of the 2. One of my favorite things about the Duo's presentation is it does a fantastic job of really pulling out drums, not to the forefront, but in a way that really kind of singles them out, and allows you to really concentrate on the groove in tracks like The Stranglers, Hanging Around. And saying that a piece of Head-Fi is highlighting groove is a sentence I don't think I've stated up until this point in my career. Then you have tracks like Burn the Witch by Radiohead, which are presented with this beautiful, lush, rich, deep, and resonant presentation. The Empyrean 2 really delivered this track with a weight and confidence that leads to a completely immersive listening experience. They also do a fantastic job of bringing great dynamic swings to tracks like Hateful by Health, presenting with deep textured bass, but highlighting all the intricate little digital flourishes that the track embellishes throughout its runtime. But then if we move to the angled ear pads, you really get an entirely different experience. If I can use a beer analogy, if you will, if the new Duo ear pads are a porter or a stout, then the angled ear pads are a Pacific Ale. Now, generally speaking, these weren't my favorite of the 2, not by a large margin, but what they do is present music with an incredible amount of air, a lot of treble information, and upper mid-range texture. And if you're someone who really enjoys acoustic cuts, these pads are absolutely made for you. Mitski's Working for the Knife has an incredibly open presentation where everything is sort of separated into layers, but somehow still remains completely cohesive. And that's not even to mention the way that these earpads sweeten her vocals in a way that the new Duo earpads don't really accomplish. And enjoying something along the lines of Flogging Molly's Float. The acoustic guitars sound rich, they sound organic, and there's a lovely pluckiness and perkiness to the finger strums of the actual guitar strings themselves. Now, these earpads focus on those upper frequencies also mean that when the track gets towards its conclusion and there's a huge swell of bass, you get this amazing contrast between those upper instrumentations and that beautiful, beautiful swell of low frequencies. Now, ironically, as I mentioned, these are the ones that I enjoyed listening to the least, but these are the ones that Meze have tuned for the audiophile community, at least according to their own documentation. I think personally this has a lot more to do with my taste in music than it does the quality of the earpads themselves. I guess I just don't listen to enough audiophile music. The last thing I want to mention about these particular earpads is just how seamless and easy the magnetic swapping function of these earpads is. This process would have been an absolute nightmare if it wasn't as simple as just plucking them off and popping another one on. It's absolutely fantastic engineering. I know it was there in the original Empyrean as well, but I think it deserves highlighting again. It is a function I want to see more of in these level of headphones. So thank you, Meze, for making my testing life about 1,000,000 times easier and more convenient. I have had an absolute blast during my time with the Meze Empyrean 2. They absolutely have an artisan quality when it comes to their design and their build and the thought that's gone into them, but the sound. I love the fact that they are more interested in giving me a good time than they are a prim and proper time. It really is great to see Meze experimenting so much with so many different sound signatures now across their range. From those humble beginnings with the 99 Classic, with that nice, juicy mid-range, they have come so far and they have given us so many different tastes of just completely different sonic characteristics. And yeah, some of those characteristics may not be for you, some of them may not be for me, but they're out there and they're offering them, and I think that's brilliant. Experimentation has become the house sound for Meze, and I really can't wait to see what sonic surprises they have in store for us in the future. And if you're interested in those sonic surprises as well, then maybe consider giving us a subscribe. If you want to know more about the Empyrean 2, you can find a link to them on our website in the description below. Alternatively, you can hit us up in the comments, you can hit us up by email, info@lenk.com.au, or you can simply give us a call. Thank you as always for watching, and bye for now.